All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I want to welcome the Shelvspace community here. I've got everybody on mute just to keep things streamlined here. If you've got any questions, there's a comment box that you can type into, so feel free throughout the webinar to go and type it all in, and we'll address all of the questions and comments that you have at the end. The purpose of these webinars is really just to facilitate knowledge sharing between all the different companies we work with, including manufacturers, suppliers, brokers, distributors, retailers, data companies. So we really just want to make sure we're passing on those best practices and knowledge to every one of our customers and everybody part of the community here. So as the name denotes, we're starting pretty simple. Last webinar was about the back to basics from a management and reporting standpoint. This webinar is focused on the mobile and reporting side. So just a quick overview of what we'll be covering today. First, getting started, everything you need to know to make sure you are set up correctly and ready to go. Then we'll go over route planning, give you a few different tools for planning your route. Then we'll go over the add new store process, which is a fairly new process. We'll even give you a little sneak peek into some of the enhancements that we've already implemented and that will be coming out soon to you guys. And lastly, 7 essential troubleshooting techniques, some that are specific to Shelvspace and others that can be applied to any app you use. So hopefully you'll find that really beneficial as you go about your day using your mobile device. So first off, with getting started, chances are all of you have gone through this process already, so I'll just go over a quick couple points here. As far as downloading the app, if ever you get a new device or you ever need to re-download, delete the app, the app can always be downloaded from the App Store. I'm going to give a little live screen sharing here of my device. So at any time you need to re-download, just tap on the App Store and search for Shelvspace, and it will pop right up. As soon as you open it, it'll take you to the login screen. Your login can be provided by your administrator. Typically, it's your work email. And then if you've forgotten your password, there's a forgot password in that opening screen. You can reset your password. If you can't get to the app for whatever reason, you can also go to shelvspace.com and just click on login. And there's a reset password here in the first login screen. Just click on forgot password, and that will send you a link to your email, and you'll be able to set it up that way. So when you first open your app, it's going to go through the initial download process. This will download all of the stores and headquarter accounts that you've been assigned to. All of that is controlled by your company administrator. So if any time you don't see stores or headquarter accounts that you think should be there, just contact them and they'll be able to control what stores you have access to and can see and what accounts you have access to. So when you go into your stores, I want to give just a quick overview of getting started as far as when you're in the store. So you have a few options here. Typically the most common flow is filling out a form. There are two types of forms. There's an update form versus reset form. And the easy way to know which one it is when you go into it. If you go to the bottom, your update form will say update. Your reset form will say submit. The difference between the two is that your update form will always show your previous information and you're just going in and updating any changes. Your reset form will be every time you complete it and submit it, it will reset to a fresh new copy of that form. A couple things to keep in mind as you're filling out the forms. Right away you'll notice here at the top you have a question counter, as well as when you answer the question, you will see an indicator of a check mark. All of this is to help you quickly identify what questions you need to answer and which ones are still remaining. If you have any required questions, they must be answered before you submit. You'll notice at the bottom, if you have not yet answered all of the questions, the required questions, that submit button will be grayed out and you'll have to answer them first. Also keep in mind some answers, again, this is dictated by however the form is set up. Some answers will have an NA option, so if you choose to answer a question, for example, maybe it's not in the store, so as far as taking a photo, you just want to tap NA, or sometimes it'll appear here on the right. You just tap on NA, and that way you can still move on while considering the question answered. Now, one extremely helpful tool that may be available depending on how the form is set up is a tooltip. And you'll notice that by this eye icon that's surrounded by a circle. Anytime you see that eye icon, you want to go ahead and tap on that. This, for example, can include a picture, say a planogram, or it can include additional information such as pricing or the criteria behind that question. So make sure anytime you see that eye icon, you go ahead and tap on it and see that additional information pertaining to that question. All right, so as far as getting started, that should cover everything. Let me go ahead and make sure I've covered all my bases. We talked about downloading and logging in, assignments versus stores versus accounts. And then from a form perspective, you have two different types of forms. You've got the tooltip, required questions, and NA options within each question. One other thing to keep in mind, sometimes you may have conditional questions, meaning depending on the previous answer, other questions will appear. So just take notice of that if that happens. Next, route planning. How do you know where to go to next? So the fastest and easiest way built into Shelvspace by default is your routing by distance. So you'll notice no matter where you are, at all times, you will always know what stores are closest to you. You can also visualize your route with the map view. And the way you bring up the map view is you're going to tap on the search bar, and you'll see a couple options appear below. If you just tap on Show Map, this will bring up the map view. Your blue dot is where you are currently located, and your green dots are each of the stores within your list. So a quick and easy way to get a list view and visualize the map view of the closest stores nearest you. To take that a step further, we've also implemented a way to sort your stores by custom label. So anytime you want to sort or filter your stores, you have this filter icon here at the top. You just tap on that icon, and you'll see this sort by option. So by default, it gets, again, it's distance. Custom label is something that you can set on the administrative side, or we can send you a store list, and in Excel, you can go ahead and set those labels. For example, some companies like to give a route number to each one of their stores. That way they can dictate the order in which stores appear when they're in that area. Or other companies like to give it a value such as the size or sales volume of that store, maybe giving a value of ABC. So no matter where you are, you know which ones are the biggest opportunity. Whatever that value is, you just let us know, and we'll be able to set that up for you so you can have that different sort option. Additionally, we also now have a way to set up store groups. So again, within that filter icon, you can tap on that, and you have this store group filter. This is really good, for example, if you want to set up specific routes. Say you want to set up Route 1 as your first week, or maybe your first month. Maybe you have your rotational route. You can organize your groups via that, or maybe you want to organize groups according to special project or initiative. However you want to set up your store groups, again, you can do that on the administrator side. So either talk to your company administrator, or if you have administrator access, you can go in and create the store groups on the admin side. I won't show that, but I'll go ahead and send out at the end of this a tutorial on how to set up store groups. So if you have questions on how to set that up. So all of those will help you dictate how do I organize and route my stores so I know where to go to next. The very last thing, just a tidbit, if you didn't already know, at any time, if you're going to a store you've never been to and you want to have turn-by-turn directions, you can always tap on the store, and at the top here where the address is, simply tap on that, and that will give you an option to show driving directions. This will open up your default mapping system and immediately start routing you to that store. All right, next, again, make sure I've hit all my bases. We talked about routing by distance. We talked about the map view. You can visualize your stores. There's also the custom label if you want to set your own sort order, as well as filtering and creating store groups and the turn-by-turn directions. Now, if you are out and about and you notice in your store list you do not have a store listed, again, the first thing you want to do is make sure and contact your administrator, and they can, if it's already in the system, they can assign it out. But if, for example, you are on the run and you need to quickly get your job initiative done for that store, or say it's not in the system at all, we have what is called our add store process. Now, again, there's some features you'll notice here that are new, that we've already started to build out based on the feedback. This is a fresh new feature, so we got a lot of great feedback on some improvements we can make that we've started implementing. So when you tap on Add Store, you're going to come to your Create New Store form. Now, by default, it's going to pull up wherever you currently are. So if you're already in the store, it's going to try and locate that address based on your GPS coordination. Now, the GPS coordination is not always going to be accurate. That's just a function of the device. So you can manually type in the address and the store name, or we have this additional feature where you can actually choose your location. Say you're at your house, or maybe the GPS is off, or you're wanting to add it from across the street. You tap into that map view. You can zoom in and out of this map view. Tap anywhere, say I find my store that I'm going to visit. Tap on it. This will tell you the address that it thinks you're wanting to add. If that looks correct, tap on the plus sign, and that will add to your form. Now all you need to do is add in the store name and store number. Once you submit, an indicator will appear at the bottom telling you it's going through its process. You want to make sure and give it a good 1 to 2 minutes as it's going to geolocate the store, create the store in the back end, grab all the forms and associations, and send that back to mobile. So sometimes that can take up to a good minute or two for it to appear. Again, the key is here, one, you need to be online. This process can only be done if you have internet connection. And you want to make sure that you get a valid address. If you do not have a valid address, it may not appear at the top of your list, and you may need to just search for it by store name or store address. Also keep in mind when you go through this process and you add a new store, it will automatically add all forms by default, all active forms. So you may see forms that pertain to that store. You may see other forms. That's for the administrator to reconcile on the back end, but that way you are not impeded in your workflow, and you can make sure and have access to any form that's active in the system. All right, so we went over must be a valid address, must be online, and it assigns all active forms, and you want to make sure and give it time for it to geolocate. All right. Last major thing that we'll go over is some troubleshooting tips and tricks. Again, some of these can be done, or this is specific to Shelvspace, but it's also great to know some of these for just any app that you come across, and just sometimes devices act funky and you need to do a few things to refresh it. So the first thing that you want to do is make sure anytime you're wanting to check on your cellular connection, if you're wanting to know whether you are synced up, whether your stores are submitting. If ever you have a question, the first thing is, how do I ensure that I have cellular or Wi-Fi connection? The easiest is Wi-Fi. You'll have an indicator here up at top if you're connected to Wi-Fi. If you are not, or if your Wi-Fi is not turned on, you can slide up from the bottom and you'll have your quick entry tools that iOS provides, and you'll see this Wi-Fi indicator here. Or you can always go into settings and make sure that you are connected to the appropriate Wi-Fi network. Now, just because this indicator shows up does not always mean that you have valid internet connection. For example, sometimes you might be at a coffee shop that requires a login, and it shows you're connected to the router, but you'll still need to log in. The easiest way to validate that you have a good connection is simply to pull up a Safari web page, type in a web address such as maybe apple.com, or maybe you want to do shelvspace.com, and validate that everything loads appropriately. Second, along with this refreshing, is what's called a pull to refresh. Sometimes your administrator will make changes, or you'll be adding new stores, and you want to validate, are all of the forms and stores and any changes that were made, is everything up to date? The quickest and easiest way is a pull to refresh, and that's simply where you slide the screen down, and you'll notice that little pause as it's checking if there's any new updates. You can do that both on the store list as well as the form list. Sometimes if it's a brand new form or store that you've never been to, when you first go into it, it'll say no forms. If you just slide down, do the pull to refresh, then the forms will pop up. Third, you want to check on your sync status. You might ask yourself, how do I know if all of my forms have successfully been submitted to the server? Everything automatically is saved locally to the device. So whether you have internet connection or not, you don't need to worry about it being saved. However, you might want to know if you've, at the end of your day, if you've submitted everything to the server. The easiest way is just go into your menu at the top left, tap on Settings within the app, and you have an offline sync settings option here. Well, it will show your forms, orders, and pictures that may be still pending. So if everything says 0, then you are good to go. If it's still showing pending, it'll typically immediately start submitting the moment it knows you're connected to cellular or Wi-Fi, but sometimes you may need to give it a little nudge by hitting Submit Pending Data. All that does is put submitting forms to the top of the queue in case it's processing other things, and just speed up the process slightly. Last thing you can do is, if you're trying to connect and sync up your stores, and it just doesn't seem to be pulling down, you've contacted your administrator, and for whatever reason it just doesn't seem to be working as expected, you have this reload your app option. Now I want you to be careful with this, as anytime you reload your app, it's basically resetting your app. So if you have any cached or saved items on your device indicated in this sync settings section, you will lose that data. So be sure before you reload your app that any pending data is submitted. Then you can tap on Reload Your App. Again, it's going to warn you. Are you sure you want to reload it? If you have any saved items, it will be removed. So once you've submitted, just press OK, and that will do a complete reload and refresh of your app. All right, on to troubleshooting step number 5. Sometimes you may, in the very beginning of your app, it's going to prompt you for permission settings, such as, can I use your location? Can we send you notifications? Can I use your picture? If that, for whatever reason, you accidentally hit no, or you're seeing an issue with that, there is in your iOS settings, so this is when you tap onto your home screen and you tap on the actual settings application, you can always verify your app settings of any app. So again, this can be applied to all of your other apps. As you scroll down in your settings page, you'll notice it'll start listing every single app you have downloaded to your device alphabetically. So for Shelvspace, you're going to scroll down to the bottom where the S's are, tap on Shelvspace, and this will validate all of your device settings for the Shelvspace application, including if you're allowing it to use your location, if you're allowing the camera. Sometimes people reported they're trying to take a picture and it doesn't allow it, and that's because they've denied access. You'll just want to make sure all of this here is turned on and green. Troubleshooting step number 6, anytime you come across an issue and you want to communicate it out to us, one of the best and most helpful ways to do that is to take a screenshot. Let me show you an example of what I mean by that. If, say, for example, you're going through and something's happening on the form, or you have a specific questions about the stores, maybe it's not showing up, or for whatever reason you want to show us what you're seeing compared to what should be, you can take a screenshot. Now this again can be applied to anywhere, not just Shelvspace, but the way you take a screenshot is there are two main buttons on your device. There's your circle button, which you're not going to be able to see on my screen here, but that's what you'll call your home screen button, the one you tap on to get to your home screen. And then there's also your on-off switch at the top right. So to take a screenshot, you're going to tap or hold down quickly both buttons simultaneously. So I'm going to go ahead and give you an example, and you'll see the screen flash white. That tells me, okay, it just took a screenshot of my device. Now I can open up photos, and in my camera roll, I will see the screenshot that I just took. So again, if you want to communicate this, you can email it out. You tap on that share icon you saw at the bottom there, tap on email, and send it to support@shelvspace.com. If you want to write some details about why you're sending this or what issue it's pertaining to, and that will immediately alert us here in the office, and we'll be able to troubleshoot from there. The very last thing is, for whatever reason, if our Shelvspace app or any app for that matter seems to be frozen or not responding, you can do what's called a force close. And the way you do that is, again, using the home screen button. You're going to double tap, and this will bring a window of all of the apps that you've opened. It's just like you would on a computer screen. When you have your windows open, you need to close it down. So once you get to this screen, you're going to slide upwards on the app as if you're flicking it off the screen, and that's going to force close your application. Then to reopen it, you just tap on your home screen button again, and then you can open up Shelvspace, and that relaunches the app. All right, let me make sure I've covered all my bases with troubleshooting. We went over verifying your Wi-Fi cellular connection, went over how to pull the refresh where you slide down on the screen, checking your sync status within settings of the application, reloading your app. You want to make sure that everything has been submitted successfully. You can check your application settings via the iOS settings application. That can be done for any app. Taking a screenshot, you hold down the home screen button and on-off switch together at the same time, and then force closing. A bonus troubleshooting step, this is more related to the device. If your device is completely frozen and you're not even able to shut it down, you can do what's known as a hard reset. This is where you hold down, just like you would taking a screenshot, you hold down the home screen button and the on-off switch, but you're going to hold that down for about 10 seconds. This is just like on your computer when you can't shut it down. You hold down that power button for a long time. Exact same thing here. You're going to hold down both buttons. You'll see the screen after about 5 to 7 seconds shut off. Then you'll see an Apple logo appear. The moment you see that Apple logo, that's where you want to go ahead and lift off of the two buttons, and that's just going to force your phone to shut down and restart. So hopefully that gives you some tools as far as troubleshooting the Shelvspace app and any application for that matter. If at any time you have trouble with that or need have a question, there's several ways to get a hold of us. The easiest is within the feedback screen of the application. So you go into your menu, you tap feedback, and you can type in your question or your issue, hit submit feedback at the bottom, and that will immediately alert the team, and we'll be able to address the issue from there. You can also email us at support@shelvspace.com, as well as we have a support website. This has articles and video tutorials that will take you step by step through some of the more core functions. And then you can always call our support line at 480-405-5551. Very last thing before I run over, I see we have a couple questions. Well, actually, let me go ahead and get to that first. I have, does route mapping directions have full function even when not connected by cellular wireless for those reps that are not using cellular connection? That is a really good question. So cellular data and your GPS integration, GPS setting on your phone are actually independent. So even if you are out in the boondocks and you have absolutely zero connection anywhere, your GPS probably is still going to work. Now, there are areas that if it's a really cloudy day, sometimes it may affect GPS, or if you're just in a completely remote area, it may not be 100% accurate, but most of the time, in fact, it'll be a very rare occasion that your GPS is not working. Now, more common, sometimes the GPS hasn't updated right away. It may be a little bit behind, or it may be a few hundred or maybe even a few thousand yards off, but typically you will at least always have some kind of GPS functionality regardless of internet connection. Any other questions before I wrap up? If so, go ahead and type it in. Let me go ahead and just show you our upcoming webinar. Again, my promise is to make this as efficient and valuable as possible. We're going to go over some real exciting things upcoming here. For example, the next one is, Friday, April Fool's Day. It's not a joke, however. This will be a very exciting one where we're going over essential forms every CPG company should be using and essential reports every CPG company should set up, as well as some other key forms and reports. That's one of the most common questions we get is, where do I start? What are the most effective questions that I should be asking? How should I be collecting information in the field? So we're going to go over all of that based on a lot of great feedback from several different companies that we've worked with throughout the industry. And then we also have upcoming topics. If you want to suggest a topic or you have feedback, please reach out. We want to make this, again, a collaborative knowledge sharing event. So any questions that you have is greatly appreciated there. Other than that, thank you for joining us. And again, if you want to register for the next one, we have a register now button, or reach out to me, and we'll make sure to include you on the next webinar.